All right, so today I really want to go over a big question that I tend to get from a lot of our viewers, which is why don't you just rent the cars out privately instead of renting them out on these car sharing platforms? When I say car sharing platforms, Turo, Uber's coming out with their own, Get Around, Hire Car, all these different ones. Why go with the platforms as opposed to private rentals? Big thing we're going to be diving into today, and really excited to share some insights with you guys. Hey guys, it's Peter with Car Rental Coach. If you're looking to boost your Turo profits or build a rental car fleet just like we have, I want you to click on the subscribe button and the little bell to make sure you never miss a video that we're putting out. And the big thing here at Car Rental Coach is that we consult with clients every single day to help them build out a fleet or achieve whatever goals that they want. If you do have big goals and you're saying, hey, look, I want to make a couple $1,000s off of this a month, or I want to turn this into a full-blown business, I want you to go to carrentalcoach.com, fill out our quick 60-second survey. If you qualify to work with us, I'll actually be giving you a call personally to discuss the different ways that we can grow your business and figure out what's the best path forward for you. All right, so the big thing that I'm going to be doing in this video is going over the difference between putting cars on car sharing platforms versus private rentals. I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of each of them. So to start with it, I want to go with car sharing because it's my personal preference. Now, I'm going to be as unbiased as I can in this whole approach when it comes to telling you guys about which thing is better, but personally, I prefer going with the car sharing platforms, and I'm going to give you a few reasons why. The first reason is when it comes to exposure. Now, I've run multiple businesses, I've owned multiple businesses. A very, very challenging part about business is getting your company's branding and getting your name out there. Normally, you have to spend money on marketing, or you have to put a lot of time, effort, and energy if you don't have money to spend on marketing to get your name out there. This is the nice thing with the car sharing platforms is they do all of the marketing for you, right? So they're already getting the people on the platform that want to rent cars. And not only do they want to rent cars, they want to rent the exact cars that you have. Which again, when you have a traditional business, it's one thing to get people that are interested in your industry. Then it's another thing to get people interested in exactly what you're offering within the industry, right? So if you had your own rental car business, okay, you have to get people that want to rent cars. Let's say that you specifically have luxury cars. Now you have to niche down a little bit further. The people that want luxury cars are not the same type of people that want economy cars. So you have to speak to those people very, very differently. So that's one big reason why I think Turo, pretty decent con on that side. The second thing is when it comes to insurance, Turo takes care of all of the insurance for you, right? So whenever you have any sort of issue with the car, they will cover it. Now, of course, we have a system and a way that we deal with them to make sure that it's beneficial for both sides, but the majority of the time, they always cover it and help you go through that whole process. When you're doing private rentals, number one, getting insurance for private rentals is significantly harder than dealing with Turo's insurance because there are only a few companies that actually do private rentals because the risk is so high. But let's say, perfect world, you do find a good company. In my experience, it's very, very hard to get a hold of them when you actually do have a claim. And for the people that are in this business, you know that when a car gets wrecked and it's out, you're losing rental income that you would preferably like to have for your business. So always your big thing is you want to get the claim, get the car paid for, go out and get a new car. You don't want to have to wait months and months and months to be able to get the money to get a new car because that's rental income that you're missing out on for all that time, right? So another big reason why I prefer it with Turo, they're pretty quick with it. It really depends on the speed of you. So how quickly are you getting back to them when it comes to emails, to any calls that they give you, when it comes to providing documentation? If you could be quick with that, then the process will move along a lot quicker with Turo than it will when you're doing it private rentals or through a company. All right, so everybody, we had a little break in the video because I got something in my eye. So if you see where there's a little bit of a transition, that is the reason for it. Next, to get back to it, the next pro for Turo that I really like is when it comes to their whole technology system. When I say technology system, as in it's very seamless when it comes to communicating with guests. They have a whole platform where you can message the people, communicate back and forth. They do have it where you can get keyless entry, so people can come up to your car, get in without a key. All they need is a code or a whole system to set it up for whatever it is. Another big reason why I like Turo is that your customers can leave you reviews, right? Now, this is also something that can be done in private rentals. If you want to build out a whole website, collect the reviews from everybody, make sure that you're posting the reviews. But what's nice with Turo is that it's automatic, right? We have it after every trip. We send out an automated message. Hey, thank you so much for renting out our car. We'd really appreciate if you'd leave us a review. The majority of the time, people do leave a review, and that does make a big difference when it comes to your cars getting rented. And I'm going to tell you why. Let's think about this. You want to go out to a nice restaurant with your family. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to Google, hey, nice restaurants in this area. What is kind of your deciding factor when you're picking one? You go, you look, you're like, Joe's Italian, sushi place. And the big thing that you're looking at here is, wait, what are the reviews between these two places? It'd be better to say if you want Italian, then you're looking at all Italian spots. So you're looking, you're like, Joe's Italian, 4.5. Sally's Italian, 4.2. Oh, but then you see Rico's, and it's 4.9, and you're like, well, that's probably the place to go, because if this place has 100 reviews and it's at 4.9, that means it's a pretty good place. On these platforms, people think the same way about the way that your cars are. And I know with my own cars, I get it all the time where people are like, well, you have such great reviews. That was the main reason why I chose your car over some of the other cars that were listed on the platform. So another cut there, because my business partner, George, brought up a really good point, who you guys have actually started to see in a lot of our content, because he's been recording a lot of the intricacies for the day-to-day operations, really talking about...
Hey, guys.
Yeah, but there he is. So really talking about our day-to-day operations, so you get to see what does it look like to really embrace this business and be in the business on a day-to-day. But he brought up another good point about Turo is, number one, they have a whole scheduling software, which is super, super convenient because you get to see exactly when all your trips are booked out. It makes it nice because then now you can look on like a week before and you can say, okay, I know that the car is getting rented at 6 a.m. on Monday and then it comes back at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. Stuff like that is nice to know just for your own scheduling purposes. And the big reason why that's important is because when you get to 50 plus cars like we have, it might not sound like something that's important when you only have 1 or 2 cars, but once you get to a decent number, it makes a significant difference when it comes to scheduling, specifically scheduling when it comes to things like maintenance, or depending on what state that you're in, if the car has to get inspected, when you have to get the cars registered, because typically you have to take the cars down for a day just to be able to get them inspected, if they need tires, if they need brakes, if the routine maintenance, just like I said. So it's really nice to have that coordination so you don't have to cancel on a guest or anything like that. Another thing to mention about that when it comes to the scheduling is that we do have our cars cleaned and detailed after every trip. So that's a nice thing to know. So kind of like I said, if the car goes out at 6 a.m. on Monday, comes back at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday it goes out at 9 a.m., then you know, okay, I have the evening on Tuesday, make sure the car gets clean, the tires are good, the maintenance is good, everything with it is fine before it goes back out the next day. So guys, just to let you know, it seems like there's going to be a lot of cuts in this video because I keep forgetting there are a lot of pros with it, and there are just some of them that kind of slip through the cracks because I'm just so used to utilizing these features that it doesn't make a difference because I work within the platforms. Another thing is license verification. So Turo and these car sharing platforms, the majority, they have it where they verify all your customers' license, which is a massive thing for insurance because that's a big thing for your cars being covered is the person licensed. So that's a really nice thing. They have it where it verifies it and makes sure that it's a real license, and really saves you a lot of time when it comes to the insurance front because you never have to worry about, is this person not licensed? Always licensed. And I've never had any issues with fake IDs or anything like that. It's always been pretty smooth. Now, to get into some of the cons of car sharing, one of the big ones is fees. I mean, there's definitely a decent bit of them. Now, I've gone over it before in another video, but Turo kind of has a pricing structure where basically how it works is that there's a split that you get to choose between from. They have a couple different ones. The most beneficial split for Turo is they have it where it's a 60-40 split, as in you get 60, they get 40. The highest that it goes up to where it's the most beneficial to you is a 90-10. But even there, they might be taking less, but then when there's an insurance problem, you have a higher deductible that you have to pay on those cars. So definitely a con in respect to that. There are a lot more fees that are coming out where for private rentals, Of course, you get to keep quote unquote 100% of the money, but you also would have to build out all these different systems and things that I've spoken about. Next thing is when it's going to come to wear and tear of your vehicles. Now, with private rentals, you're not going to get the same amount of volume of people that are going to be renting out your cars that you're going to get on Turo, right? Turo right now has an active base of people that are on the platform of 4 million people. There's no way that you're going to get close to matching 4 million people, especially doing your own marketing. And let's not even talk about the fact Turo does marketing specifically for whatever area that you're into. They have a whole infrastructure built out. You have to build out a whole infrastructure, and maybe your area is a little bit less ahead of the times as opposed to some other areas. If you're in a smaller town, people might not even be as familiar with car sharing. So now you have to explain to them what car sharing is, explain to them why it's safe, and then maybe they'll rent out your vehicle. Where opposed to with Turo, everybody that's on there, they're already bought into the idea. They've done their own research, they understand how it works, so you don't have to convince them that renting your car is a good idea. They already believe that it's a good idea. But back to the cons of Turo, wear and tear, gonna be a big one just because when it's going through Turo, there are gonna be significantly more people that are renting your car. And the last one is it comes to basically limited control. So a big thing when it comes to Turo is that you don't get to choose who's going to be renting your vehicle. So if somebody comes up and you don't know this information about them, but let's say it's someone where they have a 500 credit score. Well, probably if you do private rentals and you do a credit check, you might not want that person to rent. Or an even better example is if you look at the person's record and you're like, this person has 7 accidents in the last 2 years, then for private rentals, you'd probably turn them down. But for Turo, you don't have control of that. The people that rent it, if they're approved through the platform, they can rent your vehicle. So that's something where I'm not the biggest fan of it. But again, the way that we list our cars and the way that our listings are set up and how we speak to our customers, it gets us a certain type of person where we don't run into a lot of problems. Now, we did in the beginning when we first started because we really didn't know, okay, how do we set up the listings? How do we set up the descriptions and everything to get the ideal customer that we were looking for? But of course, as time has went on through making a lot of mistakes and losing a lot of money, we have optimized it and it's good to go. All right, so to talk about the pros of private rentals now, the first thing is that you get to cut out the middleman, which is Turo. Now, as I talked about when it comes to the cons of Turo, which one of the big ones is fees. Now, when you're the person that's the boss, you get to cut out those fees. Or even better, you can charge the fees that were being charged to the customer, but you get to recoup all of them. So that's a massive con right there. I mean, it's significantly more money that's coming into your pocket. You get to build out the whole structure of it. The second thing, which this is a direct pro, you get to choose exactly who's renting out your vehicle. So just like I'm saying, if you run any sort of check on the people, a credit check or even an accident report, and you look and you're like, John's got 10 accidents in the last 3 years. I don't know if I want him renting my car. I'm going to reject him. You can do that, and it's really not going to hurt your brand, especially if you're trying to attract a different type of customer. Now, that's another thing that I love with private rentals is that you do get to build your own brand. So as an example, if it's John Doe's Car Rentals, now you have a website where it's going to cost a little bit more for you to build out some of those things that Turo has, such as like the review system, a scheduling system, a whole way to communicate with them. Now you could just communicate with them through your phone and not pay anything, but ideally you prefer for it to live somewhere else so you have data on all your customers so you can remember, because when you get a lot of people that are coming through and renting, there's no way you're going to be able to remember every little detail about each person. So you'd have to build out a whole internal database and everything. But what's nice is that people know you for your brand the same way how they know Turo for Turo. So they would say, hey, John Doe seems like it has a great company, has a lot of great reviews. If I'm traveling to San Diego or Phoenix, then that's definitely the guy I want to rent for because I've heard about his business from some of these other cities. So that's a pro with that. Another pro when it comes to private rentals is when it comes to the terms and conditions. And to give you guys specifically an example, if you're doing private rentals and let's say you don't want your cars to get a ton of wear and tear, you can put in there, hey, look, you're only allowed to drive this car within the state of Maryland or within the state of Pennsylvania or Florida. Florida's actually a little bit of a bigger state. Let's say Connecticut. That way, you know that it's like, okay, they only have a certain range that they can drive this car, where when it comes to Turo, you don't have control over that. Now with Turo, it's like you can limit the amount of miles that they're going to drive, but there's nothing that's stopping them from going over those miles. Now, if you have the trackers like we've talked about, I mean, you could shut the car off and they can't move anymore, but that would be a very quick way to get a lot of negative reviews, which will really hurt your business, so probably not a great idea. But with private rentals, if you have an agreement between you and your renter saying, hey, stay in the state, you do have something that's signed where if you see on the tracker they went out, you can tell them that, and mostly you can charge them a little bit more depending on what happened. And they'll be a lot more reasonable because they already signed in the agreement that they looked over and everything like that. So another big thing in reference to the fees, which I know the fees were the first thing that I talked about, so I'm backtracking a little bit, but I thought this was super important and valuable when George brought it up to me. When it comes to Turo, if somebody smokes in your vehicle, the max amount of money that you can charge for that through Turo and through the car, or what specifically say Turo, is $150. Now, through private rentals, you get to choose how much you charge for that. So if you say, hey, you know, I put in the terms and conditions that there was no smoking and I see ashes all over the front seat, maybe you can charge $200. Maybe you can charge $300. And that way, you know, that's a little bit more money that gets in your pocket when you do have to deal with things like that. Now, the last big pro when it comes to renting out privately is when it comes to creative marketing. So I'm sure you guys have noticed in the videos, I'm really big into marketing and the way that you speak to your customer, identifying with them and really giving them the best kind of service that they want. When I say they, as in your ideal customer. That's what's cool about doing private rentals, is that you can get really creative with your marketing and speak exactly to the customers that you want to rent. And through Turo, it's only through the listing that you can speak. Here, I mean, you can choose all different kinds of ways to speak to your customer. You could do commercials, you could do ads on Meta, you could do TikTok ads, you could do Snapchat ads. Wherever your demographic lives, you can run ads to those platforms. You can get very creative when it comes to a referral basis. You can even go to the local dealerships in your area and say like, hey, look, you know, I know that when people are getting their car fixed, they might need to rent a car. You could partner up with them. So there's so many different ways that you could do it where it's super creative through the private rentals, as opposed to with Turo, you are working within a finite structure, as opposed to for private rentals, it's an infinite structure. It's whatever you want it to be. So to go into the cons of private renting, the biggest con for me, and this is honestly a huge reason why I do go for Turo, it's probably the number one reason why I go with Turo and car sharing platforms over private renting, it's when it comes to the payment handling. When I talk about the payment handling, I'll give you an example. Let's say with Turo, somebody rents my car out for 7 days. And let's say on the very last day, their card declines. I don't have to deal with the card declining, and I don't have to deal with having to chase them down for the money. Turo pays me the money automatically, regardless if the person's money went through or it didn't. So I know that I'm getting those funds, right? As opposed to at private rentals, let's even say that you're really smart with your private rentals. You do it beforehand where, hey, you have a 7-day trip. It's $150 deposit down or a $200 deposit down. Well, when it gets to day 7, they return the car. You're like, great, I'll charge. Or let's even say you charge right before on day 7. So you charge them on day 6. Well, the card declines. You reach out to him, you're like, hey, Mark, you know, I know you're on your last day of the trip. Just wanted to let you know that your card declined. Gonna need to get a new card on file. Mark reassures you, oh, you know, Peter, don't worry. I'll make sure it gets taken care of. Just let me drive the car around for this last day and then I'll pay you. And you're like, okay, I want to get paid, so it'll be good. Well, the last day comes around, Mark returns the car and you're like, hey, man, I need to get a card on file. And he's like, oh, well, I won't have the money until next week, but if you could wait till next week, that's fine. And you can press them as much as you want when you're there and say, no, man, I really need something now. But if the card doesn't go through because there's no money to get. So you're just out the second half of that rental income past your deposit because of that whole card declining thing. Where with Turo, you get paid regardless. Here's another nice thing that I like with Turo. When it comes to dealing with refunds or when people cancel trips, Turo sends that person the money back immediately, so they don't haggle you saying like, hey, where's my money? Where's my money? Because anybody on this channel that's owned a business before, you know with payment processors, refunds are not sent automatically. Maybe if you'd want to send it through Venmo or Cash App, you could do it that way. But when you work through a traditional payment processor and you would like to keep everything within that channel because it's easier for accounting, typically, I mean, the quickest I've seen refunds be sent through some of my businesses are 2 to 3 days minimum. So if somebody really needs that money for a deposit or they had to pay for a couple days up front, unfortunately, they can't get it back for 2 to 3 days. And even with Turo, it's only happened to me twice. I've had people message me and say like, hey, I need my money back. Like, you're taking my money. What are you doing? And it's nice because I can just direct them and say, hey, reach out to Turo support. They'll help you. And I don't have to deal with it. And the support deals with it, which is really, really nice, especially when you do get to a big fleet. Because it's one thing, you only have 1 to 2 cars. Okay, maybe it's easy to message these people back and forth, figure out something that works. Even when you get upwards of 10 cars, if you have 3 people messaging you at once saying like, my payment didn't work or I'll get the money to you whenever, it just becomes way too much of a hassle that you don't want to deal with. To me, that's the number one con with private rentals. Now, another one to mention is when it comes to insurance, which I touched on this a little bit when I was talking about the pros and cons of renting on the car sharing platforms. When it comes to insurance for private rentals, number one, it is very, very, very difficult to find companies that will insure you for private rentals, because they see the rental business as a very, very high risk business, which it is because the cars are getting rented all the time. There is a good chance they're going to get into an accident. So that's the first big thing. The second big thing is if you do find a company, and I mentioned this earlier in the video, they are very, very difficult to get a hold of whenever there is an accident. So when I did private rentals, would typically take like 3 months, which again, 3 months of no rental income is not fun. The biggest thing when it comes to a claim, we want, okay, the car gets wrecked. It's not a good thing, not happy about it. But my next steps are, okay, it's wrecked. I want to make sure that I file the claim. I get the claim moving as quickly as possible. Hopefully it's taken care of within a month. I get the money. If I have financing, I can pay off whatever the loan is, then use whatever it is, the credit or the capital that I have, and go acquire another car. I don't want to sit and not keep acquiring vehicles, because then your business is slowing down and the trajectory is not going this way. It starts to kind of stagnate, and you never want your business to stagnate. So I would say that's another big con, is in reference to insurance. The last con when it comes to private rentals is that you don't have access to an entire support network. So when it comes to me communicating with my guests, I have an entire automated messaging system. I will answer some questions that they have if it's something about where to return the car, things of that nature. But when it comes to technical questions, such as, hey, how do I extend my trip on the app? Or how do I message through this on the app? Or I want to change whatever my trip date is. Or can I drop the car off here instead of there? I let Turo support deal with all of that. So the big thing then to ask here in this video is, who is car sharing for versus who are private rentals for? Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, I prefer going with the car sharing platforms for the number one reason, because they deal with the payments. Number two, I like the insurance. And number three, I like that all of the systems are built out. So if you're the type of person where those things make a difference, also I want to mention, if you have limited access to capital, Turo is going to be significantly easier for you to get into, because for Turo, the only thing you really have to put money into is a car. So if you have limited access to capital, maybe this is going to be your first business and you really don't know a lot about marketing or communicating with customers or sales, Turo is going to be the better option. Now let's say that you're a person on a different angle here. Maybe you've run a couple successful businesses. You know about some of the key factors of business. You know about marketing, you know about sales, you know about customer relations, and you know how to build out solid systems. Also, you'll need to know how to do web development to build out all the current systems I was talking about. But that's besides the fact. You can hire somebody to do that, especially if you have access to capital and you have a decent network. But if that's you, then I would say private rentals are probably going to be the better option for you moving forward. Now, the main reason why I chose Turo over private rentals is because I tried doing a couple private rentals in the beginning when I first started. And honestly, the biggest problem that I ran into was with the payments. So it was literally that story that I told you. That was the issue that I deal with. People will be like, I'll make sure you get paid. So I started to do deposits. And then even with deposits, people are like, oh, well, I'll get it to you a day after. And I would just never get the money. It just sucked because the car was out there and it could have been on these platforms and I would have been getting paid regardless. So that's really the main reason why I prefer to go with car sharing over the private rentals. So to conclude this video, I want you guys to make sure that you click the subscribe button and the little bell. That way you'll never miss any content that's coming out. And if you're the type of person where you do have big goals, you are serious about this business, or if you're somebody starting out and you're like, you know what, I want this to be my first business and I want the business to do well, go to carrentalcoach.com, fill out our 60-second survey. The big reason why I stress the survey is because the survey, it asks questions to tell me if you're serious or not, okay? If you are serious, then it'll actually prompt you to schedule a call with me. I'm gonna get on the phone with you, we're gonna assess your goals, and we're going to see if we can work with you on a one-on-one basis. Now, we can't work with everybody. I specifically do wanna work with people that want this to be a serious business and that want to have a serious amount of profit that's coming from it. So if that's you, go to carrentalcoach.com, fill out the survey. Would love to speak with you guys here soon and hope that everybody has a great day.